So we have an Echoflex time clock, and we are trying to activate a timed event that talks to some Echoflex products, but not the others. So if we go through the menu, we would go into scheduling events. And in this case, I'm going to start my very first event number, which is 1, and then I'm going to adjust what the action is. And if we need to tell certain controllers to do something but not talk to other ones, we would need to utilize a scene command. And in a scene command, we can then change the group number, the scene, and then normal time clock adjustments such as when it happens and how often it happens. So there's a couple terms that we need to know, which is a group number and a scene number. Groups and scenes, or also known as presets, are custom settings that can be set on an Echoflex controller. So I can define a group on an Echoflex controller and what it does with a scene in terms of levels on the controller itself. The time clock would only link to the controllers and send that command to the controllers. So if I needed to adjust the group and scene and send that out, I need to define that on the controller. Now in some Echoflex systems, this might be pre-commissioned and have this data in there. But if you don't have a pre-commissioned system, we will need to use software to write those specific data points into the controllers. So there are a couple things that we would need in order to make this happen. One of them is the USB serial interface to connect to a computer and send those updates out to the controllers. So I would need an Echoflex serial interface. And then I would also need to download the software for Garibaldi Pro, which I would install on a Windows machine to be able to open the software and send those updates. So now I'm in Garibaldi Pro. I have an ELED one within my devices here, and I'm just going to show you how you adjust those settings. So it might look like this. I'm going to go into settings. There's a ton of different options that I can affect, so I'm just going to search for the group masking. So right now, as this is shown here, I have this controller affected by scene 2 because there's a green check mark there. So if I click on that, it goes away, and I can decide which ones are affected. So you'll see all these specific groups are affected. So when my time clock sends to group 1 a scene, this controller would be affected. Now let's look at what those presets are. So rather than scene, this is called preset on the controller. And when I refine my search for just preset changes, I can define what the level is when it hears preset 1 and the ramp time, like how quickly it would go to that level. This is a very simple controller, so those are the only 2 settings I can change, but I can change that per preset. So if I was sending group 2 preset 5, this controller would go to 40% over 2 seconds. If I wanted to make those changes, I can adjust those. Two seconds is fine, and then I would need to write to that controller. So to upload those changes, I would right-click on the controller, and I would upload links and settings.